Okay, well I'm Andrew, I'm going to take you on the tour. This is of course our Lancaster NX611 Just Jane. What I'm going to talk about today is the progress so far with this winter restoration, and I'll just recap with a short bit at the start so you're aware of what's happening. Last year we did a complete survey of the aircraft, a complete paint strip to see what sort of condition she was in, ready for the work to make her airworthy. So this year is year one. It's the start of the restoration to airworthy for her. So what we did last year with the survey was kind of split the work into winter periods. We do the work during the winter, taxi her during the summer, and then each piece of winter work will eventually accumulate to make one airworthy aircraft. So the first bit we've plumbed for, which is what we're doing this year, is the restoration of the starboard fin and rudder, the removal of the starboard inner engine, number 3 engine, the overhaul of the undercarriage support beams and engine mounting points and everything from the engine back to the spar. We also removed the starboard trailing edge from the wing to assess the trailing edge and the rear face of the rear spar. I'll talk about that when we get around to the other side. So we're coming towards the end of this winter restoration period. We should have her back taxiing hopefully within the last fortnight of April. So it gives us about 4 weeks, 5 weeks really to finish the aircraft ready for taxi runs. Where we are with the engines at the moment, bar probably about a week's worth of work, they're now ready to run. Next week we should be putting wheels on and beginning to get ready to lower back onto her wheels. So the engine sides picked up pace quite quickly, number 3 engine's back on and it's all built back up. Again, I'll talk you through that side. Stood this side because we're stood beside a Merlin 25 engine. This is the most recent acquisition for the centre. Some of you may have seen on the website and on social media about us going to get it. So a little bit of a recap about this engine. We were approached in January by somebody in Switzerland asking if we wanted to purchase a Merlin 25 engine. We of course said we're very interested and would like to learn more. The Merlin 25 is the variant that was fitted to the Mosquito. And it's basically a Merlin 24 where the coolant flows the opposite way round. So it's basically a Merlin 24 with slightly different coolant fittings, so it can easily be used as a 24 or a 25. This particular engine was shipped out to Switzerland after the war. During the war they'd had a Mosquito fly through their airspace. Switzerland were neutral during the war, and they forced the aircraft down. It had some flak damage, some damage from operations. They forced it down into Switzerland and decided to keep it. How neutral of them. So they decided to operate the aircraft. It was near enough airworthy. They repaired it and operated it, and they used it after the war for jet trials. So they had a mini jet engine strung underneath the fuselage from the ventral bay, from the bomb bay, and were testing jet engines. They decided they would also have a 3rd engine just to keep the aircraft running in case they had an engine fault, so they could just put the spare in. So they ordered this spare engine from Rolls-Royce. It eventually got over to Switzerland as their spare. By that point they found that the glue on the Mosquito was failing, the aircraft was delaminating. I can't think why, probably something to do with a jet engine strung underneath the ventral bay. So this spare engine never actually got used, so it's crated up, sent over, crated and never touched. When the aircraft was delaminating and failing, they stripped the engines off and burnt it. The 2 engines that had been operated on it went to a museum. The 3rd engine went to a different museum and eventually was sold to a private collector in 1980. And then we purchased it from that private collector last month. So this engine is basically as it came out of the factory and delivered to be fitted to an aircraft, never touched, never modified, never opened up. So it's kind of like a time capsule. It's the most original engine that we've ever seen. It's very rare to find an engine where all the serial numbers correspond from those 2 ends, so to speak. But yeah, it's basically as it was produced from the factory, put on a test bed, test run, packaged up, sent out, and never touched since. So we've preserved it, we've put inhibiting oil in the carb, we've got neat coolant to put in the coolant system. It was inhibited from Rolls-Royce, so it's all the inside's already got the inhibiting oil inside of it. We've put plug stoppers in, and we've preserved the outside, and we're thinking at the moment it's just going to sit kind of as a time capsule of how the engines were when they came from the factory. There can't be many, I'm not going to say if any, but there can't be many that are absolutely mint as they were from the factory. 0 hour never run, never touched. So by all means have a look around this when I release you from the tour a little bit later on.
So how much was that then?
That cost us £28,000. It's worth, I don't know.
As anyone wants to pay,
It depends how you view it. If you went to buy any Merlin engine from anybody that wasn't overhauled to airworthy, you can pay anywhere between £25,000 to £50,000 for it. So we pay on the good side for any Rolls-Royce Merlin that you find that you're going to send to overhaul. The overhaul of it to airworthy condition is about £90,000 plus VAT, and then the engine is worth at the end of that 100 to 150 depending on the market Merlin. So you could say in effect it's worth £150,000, but equally in order to have that ticket as airworthy you'd have to strip it apart, change the seals and things like that. So it is and it isn't. It's worth more, I think, as an historical time capsule as it is, than if we were to break it down, make it airworthy, and then with no value for it. Okay, sat just behind us here, behind me, this is the jig for the production of the wooden leading edge for the tail fin. So we've had the tail fins, as you see, so the port fin there, the leading edge of it, so next to the red part of the fin there, that full leading edge there is actually wood. So it's made of, originally it was made of mahogany. You can't get mahogany now because it's a controlled protected wood, so we've had to use ash. So we've had a new ash leading edge made, which I'll show you over by the fin a little bit later on. So this is the jig that was produced. So all these caps are taken off, and then layers of thin ash are glued down, glued to the shape of the jig here, and then clamped down until it sets. And I'll show you that as we go back over. Rack in here, we still have some of the cowlings. Some of the cowlings are back on the engines ready for running. The rest of them will hopefully go on in the next week or 10 days. And behind on the floor there we have the long aluminium tubes, some of the heated tubes that were taken out of the aircraft this winter cleaned up. They'll be going back in probably 10 days to a fortnight. The H2S cupola from underneath, which we're going on I think probably Tuesday next week. And then some of the undercarriage radius arms and retraction gearing and cowlings from underneath the number 3 engine as well. So I'll lead you around, we'll just make our way around to the fin at the tail of the aircraft. Okay, so some of the things we've been doing the last 10 days to a week is the production of the skins for the fin. So just behind us here, this big green item is what they call an English wheel. Okay. An English wheel is used to form and shape metal. So this is one of the new skins for the fin, and you'll see the top edge there is actually wheeled. It's formed, it's stretched to make a particular shape. And the way that's done really is a large top wheel, a smaller bottom wheel on this, and you basically just run the aluminium through the wheel and it compresses and stretches the material. It's a bit of a mystic art really, in the fact that one small minor error and the whole skin's knackered basically because it's been stretched in the wrong place. So we've had a company that have come in to use it. It's our English wheel, or the centre's English wheel, obviously our aluminium, and we've just hired the expertise in to do the work. A company called Cunningham Aero from down near Bournemouth, or Dorset somewhere I think, and they came in to wheel the skins for us. The skins are on the top just here. I've put a before and after, or an old and a new skin, so you can have a look around those. You'll see how the wheeling actually distorts the metal slightly, and that's the stretching of the material to make it actually form the shape. How it's done is remarkable really, when you see them actually doing it, and it's all about exactly where you put that stretch to form the shape to make it right. And amazing skill really. It's something that's lost now really. There's not many people that can do it anymore, unfortunately. Even places like BVMF outsource it because they don't train it anymore. There's very few places that do it. The company we use, it's a couple basically. The older gentleman's not doing it anymore, and the lady's looking for a replacement for herself because it's just a dying art form. If she stops, then there's only one other company in the UK that we could use to do the work. Okay, so we're now in a stage where the fin and the rudder are all getting riveted together. They've been repaired and new parts produced where required. They've been pinned together with Clico pins, skin pins like these here. They've been taken back apart, deburred, riveted together in their sections. Now they're being riveted onto the intercostals themselves, the ribs themselves. So up to here so far we've got another 2 intercostals to go on. So these are what I'm calling intercostals. They're kind of the horizontals to the verticals as you see them on the jig there. There's 2 more of those to go on, so there's another set of ribs, intercostal, rib, intercostal, leading edge. The leading edge, as I've said, is laminated ash. So this is one leading edge produced from that jig. We've had 3 produced, 1 for starboard, 1 for port, and 1 for a mistake. So you can see this is a work of art itself as well, how it's all laminated and spliced together. So this sits on top of the fin like that. So this needs to be drilled, taken off again, varnished, put back on and screwed. Did that all wrong, didn't I? The method to actually screwing these on is you have to drill the hole with a particular drill bit, then drill it with another drill bit, then put your screw in, take your screw out, pull the skin, the aluminium skin, put the screw back in again. So it's not quite simple as DIY at home, drill the hole and put the screw in. There's several different actual actions you have to do in order to do it correctly by the book. So you can see we're getting on fairly well with the fin and rudder. This structure will be complete next week, and then we'll be down to the drilling and the screwing of the woodwork, the leading edge. No one's really put their hand up and stepped forward for that job quite yet, so we're hoping that we've got a gentleman called Richard Yates coming in hopefully to give us a hand with the woodwork, because he's used wood on GA aircraft for many years, so he'll know the system and be well practiced at it. Each leading edge is equating to have cost between £2,500 and £3,000, so it's not the sort of thing you want to drill in the wrong place. Yeah, a bit of wood filler will be fine, won't it? Yeah, filler and forget about it. So once the structure's riveted back together and the leading edge is on, we then have to attach the old skins on one side to keep the structure as it should be with the skins. We will then line up the new skins, take off the section of old skin that mirrors it on the opposite side, then back drill the new skins, pin those on and do the same with the opposite side. So these old skins have been on and off more times than I've had hot dinners just recently, because they go on to make sure the structure's okay before it's riveted back together. The skin's riveted, the structure's riveted, the skins go back on, check everything, check the leading edge, and then they'll go on again to screw the leading edge. So yeah, there's been an awful lot of stages and actions into actually getting these things back together, because you've got to make sure it's absolutely true to as it was produced originally and as per the drawing. The rudder beside us here, this is almost complete structure-wise. There's about 2 more ribs to do, and a few more sections within those ribs. For example, this one needs riveting in here, the new part of this. So there's about this front edge, if you like, the top edge, there's a little bit more work to do to it. And then we have the nose ribs to go on, which are basically these bits that go on here, the new production versions of these. And then the skins that actually go on the rudder are flat, bar the bottom one. So they're easily produced in-house and they'll be riveted on. And then the bottom skin, this is the old one here. The bottom skin, the cap that goes on the bottom. New one of that's been produced, so that's just got to be drilled and go on. I think this has had a bit of a tangle with a piece of ground equipment at some point in its life.
What do you do with the old skins?
Well, they're used for reference all the way through the project, and then we haven't really decided yet as what we're going to do with them. Majority of them can't be used because they've either had oversized holes put in them, or there's damage on them, or there's corrosion on them. What we found through a lot of this project is the skins and parts of the aircraft haven't been protected when they were produced at the factory as they should have been. So you can see the corrosion on the inside of that skin. That shouldn't occur, that shouldn't happen. It should have been treated as it was produced in the factory in reality,
just banging them out,
sent out. But yeah, they were produced with an expectation that they're going to last 40 flying hours or something. So they weren't expecting in 70 years time someone daft was going to be trying to preserve it and keep it going again. Okay, a few more parts of the rudder. Anybody guess what that is, other than heavy?
Rudder weight.
Yep, that's it. It's the weight that sits in the leading edge of the rudder. So it sits in there,
Yep.
and that gives the rudder some weight, so that when you move it, it has some weight against the airflow. So I'll pass that round. So there's that weight in the bottom, and there's two of these in the top. So these sit about there-ish, and they're the weights on the top that help you to move the rudder. They kind of add a ballast weight at an extreme point to help you move it. So there's one of those each side as well. So the structure of this is very light, very well made, but very light. And then when you start putting these on, it begins to add a fair bit of weight to it.
How many weights would you have? Rudder weights? Just the one?
There's two of those, one each side of the rudder, and then that last one in the bottom leading edge. I think it's bronze, the green one that's going around, it's actually made of bronze.
This one cast.
It's steel weight. Yeah, it's steel weight and steel tube, I think it is. We sent. Yes, yeah. We sent that off to be NDT'd, X-rayed, to find out how it's put together. Because if you go by the drawings, there should be two pins that hold the actual weight to the rod. There aren't any pins on this, so we thought, oh, it must be screwed in or something. It must have a thread or something. So we sent it away to be NDT'd, X-rayed. It came back, and by the X-ray, it's just in there. There's nothing holding it in, seemingly. So we haven't really found the answer. We think it's maybe heated, pressed in, and allowed to cool, so it holds it in. But yeah, so we haven't taken it apart, so we can't really work out yet how it goes back together again. Have a look at the condition of the trailing edges, and have a look at the condition of the rear face of the rear spar. The rear face of the rear spar's got the studs in it. Those are steel studs which bolt through onto the trailing edges. So we've had to do a survey on those, count how many there are of a particular type. Majority of them, certainly on the inner section, are stamped with the part number. They tend to lose that as you get further out, so there's a little bit of guesswork as to the lengths. They're all, or nearly just enough, the same length of stud sticking out towards the tail, but it's the front section of the stud which is all a different length, because the main spar itself tapers and is different shapes as you get out towards the wing tip. So it's the inner length of the threaded section that we need to find out how many of each are. All these need replacing because they're steel, and over time they've begun to corrode and rust, so they'll all be replaced. So really getting an idea of work for the future is what we're working on here. So although we're doing restoration work and completing it and it going back on airworthy, we're also doing things which is going to enable quicker work later on because we can plan for it.
Preparation.
That's it, preparation. So these trailing edges have had anchor nut strips put in them for servicing panels, which originally would have been pop rivets. So we're going to anchor nuts and screws because they've got to come on and off more regularly now than they would have done originally. So they'll be going back on the next couple of weeks, and the new panels will go onto them. Because they've been off this year, when they actually come off to be repaired, serviced or whatever, and go back on as airworthy, they'll come off really easily. All the panels will come off easily, so that we've got more time to physically do the work to them and less time trying to get them off. So it's all little bits, cogs within cogs, to make work work later on. So number 3 engine here, undercarriage and everything has all come off this winter. So undercarriage has been off. The green pieces here, and the undercarriage support beams, they themselves bolt onto the main spar. The main reason for the removal of the number 3 starboard inner engine here was to get these large cast undercarriage support beams off, NDT them, see if we can find any damage to them, any problems with them. Mark 10 Lancasters, for some reason, we've generally found that they've had a crack in the carriage support beam. Now whether that's a fault in production in Canada, or whether it's something that Lancasters have happened to them after a certain number of landings, certain number of hours. So we're very keen to take these off each side and really see if there's anything wrong with them. The paperwork that can go in the box is finished. So forward of the subframe is the bulkhead, so that's all gone back on, all finished, and the engine's come back on the front. So that's all completed, got back on, that's just back ready to run. Starting next week we'll have the radius arms back in, so that's the long arms that fold up in the middle when the undercarriage is retracted, so that goes from here back to the bottom rear spar, and the undercarriage jacks will go back in as well. That will then enable us to put the balances on, put the fillet panel in here back on, so that was being done around the same sort of time as the trailing edges go back on. Once they're all done, the aircraft can be lowered back down on its wheels, and it's effectively ready for engine runs. It's looking like we're going to do engine runs prior to the fin and rudder being completed, just to make sure there's no faults. That gives us that little bit of time to bring it back in, fix any faults before the taxi runs in May. Back on, and then working our way through the aircraft as we go. The whole project's going to be about £3 to £3.5 million. This winter, for example, has cost us about 125,000. Next winter will be another 125,000. The winter after that, with the fuselage section, who knows?
Depends what you find.
Yeah, it depends what we find. We have had the floor section up to see what it's like underneath, and it's not too bad. There's some repairs to do to some of the formers and ribs and things, but as a general rule it's fairly good. The biggest problem we have with the aircraft really is rivets. A lot of the aircraft is put together using mag alloy rivets, and over a period of time they corrode away and they fail basically. So the trailing edges, for some reason they didn't use that rivet in the trailing edges, so they won't need re-riveting. The tops of the wings will need completely re-riveting, and some areas on the fuselage as well. So that's the most time consuming job. You've got to drill out the rivet, clean the hole out, put a new rivet in, and so on and so forth. But yeah, doing the fuselage sections for me is going to be quite an interesting thing. It's going to, because the aircraft's going to be completely lowered down, and the fuselage section will be put on trolleys and wheeled away. So you'll have one separate piece of fuselage to the next, and the nose cockpit section will be done separately, and the bomb aiming position will be done in conjunction with another piece, I think. So over the next few years it's going to get really, really interesting as the project progresses, and seeing everything that's happening, and seeing the aircraft as you'll likely never have seen a Lancaster before. So thank you very much for joining me for the tour, getting an insight into what we're doing and the problems we're facing and the work that's going on. Has anybody got any questions?
Will she have to be eventually